It is so good this evening to join with a couple of members of the Gospel Proclaimers. This singing group has been in existence for many, many years. We're going to be talking to them about these years. We're going to be talking to them about their history and origin. Join me as I speak with Dennis and I speak with Redley, Joseph Redley and Dennis Dillon. I'm going to invite them on right now and we'll be talking together. Good to see you guys.
It is good to see you, Dr. Keith Ainsworth Morris, and it's good to be with you, sir. It's been a while, but it's good to see you.
It's certainly been a while. Great to see you. Redley, it's good to see you too. How are things with you?
Thank you. Things are going good. I'm happy you were able to facilitate this. Excited to be here and just to share the journey of the Gospel Proclaimers.
Definitely. So we're going to start at the beginning. I don't know which of you will speak about it, but either of you can chime in at any time. Can you share, for someone who doesn't know about the Gospel Proclaimers, can you share the story of how the Gospel Proclaimers came about as a group? Whose idea was it originally?
Well, let me take a stab at it. I know Dennis would correct me where I go wrong, so I'll go first. But I can vividly recall at Kingsway High School, Kingston, Jamaica, we typically would have worship in the classroom. Sometimes we have morning worship at the Kencott church. But this particular morning, I think we were having worship in the classroom. And this was second form. That would be the equivalent of grade 8. Grade 8.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having worship, and we were singing. Of course, we usually sing choruses or hymns, and I was there singing, and then there was another guy there harmonizing, and I looked across the classroom to see who was this guy harmonizing, and it was Robert Turner. He was harmonizing, and it sounded good. And then there was another guy in the corner of the classroom where, you know, the guys who normally give most of the trouble hang out. And that individual was singing the bass, and that was Dennis Dillon.
That was not me, Redley. I don't know what you're talking about. I thought
and it's a long time. It's a long time. In fact, I think it was the year was 1975. So we can
1975.
Yeah, I think that was the year 75. And so we, you know, after, you know, enjoyed the little song service, and we sort of got together and say, you know, we sounded good. I would harmonize sometimes too. So we decided to figure out who would do the melody, the lead part. And then we were able to identify Colin Harris, who did from then on the lead part. We decided to get together and start singing as a quartet. And I don't remember how we came up with the name Melodious Brothers, but that was a name that we gave ourselves. Started singing regularly at morning worship in the classroom, and sometimes morning worship at the church.
So Dennis, is that your recollection of the event?
To be honest with you, I don't know. You know, we age, right? I really don't remember that, but I'm sure it happened. But believe me, that's a lot of years. That's 50-something years Dr. Morrison. But certainly, I think that's a good start. Certainly, yes, I remember us being in worship in chapel at Kingsway High School, us guys getting together. We started to sing, and then we started to meet and practice in our classroom. Every break we were coming together, and we were singing, and that's kind of how the Melodious Brothers got started. If I could kind of bring in, because what happened later on, Redley kind of led the work and the task as it relates to the Melodious Brothers at Kingsway. And I was up in Golden Spring and going to Golden Spring Church, and Errol Martin and Franklin Forrest and
Mercury Dacus,
Mitchell and Mercury Dacus. I'm trying to remember everybody's name. So we were all singing up that side, and I said, listen, this is taxing. Let's bring both of these quartets together. And we did. And then Jack says, I know this guy is a great singer. And so he brought in Leroy Gibbon, and thus you have the 8 or at one point 9 of us singing together under the new name Gospel Proclaimers.
Okay, yeah, so you touched on something that I wanted to go back on for both of you. Talk about your individual backgrounds, because Dennis, you mentioned Golden Spring. Could each of you talk about your individual backgrounds? Where did you come from to Kingsway? Because Kingsway seemed to have been the original meet spot for both of you. Turner is not here with us this evening on this podcast, but about your individual background. Redley, where did you come from in terms of church? Were you singing in church? What was going on?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm glad you asked, because strangely, this was not my first time singing quartet music or this type of music. I actually was a part of a quartet in New Hope School. So that's primary school. That's like going even further back. My grandfather got me a cassette player, and if I don't know if Dr. Morris can remember a cassette player, but he would have recording of the King's Arrows, and of course there was a Voice of Prophecy prior to that. And so there was a quartet that we started at New Hope School. So I was singing quartet music at the time. Interestingly, New Hope School is right there at North Street, Seventh Adventist Church. That's downtown Kingston. It's interesting that while I was singing, I was just harmonizing. In fact, most of the guys were harmonizing. The bass was nothing compared to Dennis's bass that we learned later on. He was singing deep melody, if you understand.
Yes.
It's like melody in the lower register. And
a really skinny guy too, like in those days. Everybody used to say this skinny guy.
Yeah, and so unfortunately those two guys have passed. Patrick Barrett was one of them, and Trevor Lawrence, and then the other guy was Paul Mundell, and that's where we started singing quartet music. And of course, I can't forget when this gentleman from Upper Rural St. Andrew came as a teacher at New Hope School, and when he heard us singing, Then he said, "Oh, okay. This is what baritone is. This is what bass is. This is what first tenor is." It was like a light bulb open to us because we were just singing and harmonizing, and that's like my beginnings as far as this type of music is concerned.
All right, Rev, what about you?
Yeah, on my side, an amazing spiritual evolution that I'm super proud of. I started out, living in Lawrence Tavern. Back in those days, the closest church was a church further up called Florence Hill. That's where I got baptized at the age of 11 years old, many years ago. But we were living so much closer to Golden Spring that we ended up going to the Golden Spring Church, and we worked there and served there, sang there, met Jack and other. There's just such rich music at the Golden Spring Church back in those days. You know what I'm talking about, Dr. Morrison. You have some spring experience as well.
Yeah, I was just like a baby at the time. Please don't age me like that. I was a baby. Oh, yeah, certainly. I do remember those early days, and probably that is why through the years I've been extremely fond of the music of the gospel proclaimers, and that probably is why I myself love the kind of a cappella and the kind of combined male and sometimes the additional female voices. My love for music originated from hearing you guys sing. So I'm extremely heartened to hear the history, because I would see you guys, but I never knew how things came about. So I'm glad to hear, as many individuals who are watching this would be glad to hear of the history of the Melodious Brothers and then the Gospel Proclaimers. Now, you were Melodious Brothers first, and according to you, Dennis, the from Golden Spring and the Melodious Brothers came together. Talk about that transition. How was that received? Who made negotiations? How talk about that? How did it go?
I think, interestingly enough, I think it's Redley and I mainly. But you have the right two people today. It's just the glue and how everything got really founded and consummated. I remember we loved to go into the phone booth in Golden Spring and sing inside the phone booth, because it just gave a richness in terms of the harmony inside the booth. I can't.
It was a small phone booth, It was.
It was a tiny booth, but believe it or not, the four of us fit in the booth back in those days. We couldn't do it now, Redley. It wasn't possible to outside in that phone booth now. But I think there and just Lincoln and Joe Redley may have some different experiences and different understanding, and I love it because we all come from different perspectives. But again, what I really love is we were coming together. We were meeting in Kingston at Kingsway High School for rehearsal quite frequently. Knowing sometimes we didn't even know how we're going to get home when we're finished, because Redley's going to Bull Bay or Buff Bay, one of those bays, and I was going to Lawrence Tavern, and Ainsworth was going to Everton Park, and Jack was going to Golden Spring, and we were going all over. Hardly any of us actually lived in Kingston, believe it or not. So it was just the way things got started, and we were blended together, not just in terms of the richness of our harmony, but we were blended together as brothers and committed to really evangelizing through music.
Just to add to that, yeah, just to add to that, because I think the start before we actually blended together, you know, we sang a number of years as the Melodious Brothers Quartet, but the sound, like from day one, was just like a winning sound. You know, I share that because even there at Kingsway, I tried my hand with some other guys at a quartet, and you know, another quartet. I won't call the names of the guys, but you know, we spent so much time rehearsing on the piano, practicing, but we were never ready, prime time ready. Never ever get to prime time ready. We're always practicing, but and a few times we got to sing on stage, you know, it wasn't all that well. We wish we had an opportunity to do it over, but but with the Melodious Brothers, it was like literally a hit from the start. The sound was just, the voices just blended together. So we really started moving around different churches. We even did concert. I think the first concert we had was at Kingsway in the Quadrangle. And many of our colleagues from Fifth Form, it might have been Fourth Form at the time, really rally around. They were selling, you know, the refreshment. They were in charge of it. They were in charge of sales. A ticket was like a coming together of the entire school. And the entire school was in support of it, of course, but those in our grade were the ones leading it. When the Melodious Brothers went on to various music competition, the Youth for Christ, we won that first round, won that second round, and you know, it was really refreshing and rewarding. All of that we did before we actually joined the two groups to form the Gospel Proclaimers, to the extent that when it was, I think it was Dennis's proposal, and I was a little reluctant. But yeah, that's some of the things we did before he was able to convince me that, hey, let's it was too much for him to try to navigate.
It was too much for him. So tell me,
groups.
You mentioned Redley. You mentioned earlier about the King's Heralds and your teacher influence. Did you start singing baritone? Did you start singing baritone at that time, or you transitioned to baritone? What was your part? Were you influenced by somebody that you would listen to and they inspired you to sing baritone? And I'm going to ask the same question to you, Dennis. Is there a bass influence for you that you attempted to sing like, or you were just born with that?
So it was my grandfather who introduced me to the King's Herald through Voice of Prophecy. And to be honest with you, I was just mesmerized by the rich sound and the harmony. At that stage, I couldn't pick out baritone from first 10. All I knew it was rich and sweet. It was as I shared when at New Hope. It was when Mr. Nooks, I forget his first name, Nooks, came and taught there. He sang in the some other group,
Aspires.
Aspires, and before that there was the brothers. What's the name of? I'm forgetting the name of it. Merry Boys, yeah.
Merry Boys, yeah.
They were the Merry Boys. So he was the one who...
Didn't they have some connection with Florence Hill also?
Yes, Florence Hill. Yeah, that's it. This church they were from, and he came and really explained to us the various parts. And then he said, what I'm harmonizing, because that's all I was doing, is really baritone. And so I think because my voice range, not deep enough to sing the bass like Dennis, but deep enough to be below tenor. And so I just naturally grew into baritone from then. I've tried my hand at bass sometimes when Dennis gives me the chance.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it. I sung baritone all pretty much all my life.
Okay.
And I would just jump in to say first, Keith, that that baritone is probably the most important part of a quartet. You can't make it without baritone, and baritone is the most skillful singer, I believe, because the baritone singer have to fill in all of the gaps that are left between the bass and the tenor. But just from my perspective, I'm almost certain that it was Redley that guided me to singing bass. It was 13, 14 years old at the time. I had not a clue, knows nothing about quartet singing or anything like that. And I think it was Redley who was trying to get me to sing ba-doo, ba-doo, ba-well, well. I kind of think that was, and I said, what's that? Ba-doo, ba-doo, ba-well. And I want to think, if I'm not mistaken, that may have been the first song that we learned back in the early days of the Melodious Brothers. And I think I caught on pretty quickly, and it just evolved and grew from there. And yeah, like Redley shared, our harmony was just unique. It was rich. It was early. It was effortless. I listened to every now and then this group that called Jehovah Shalom from Uganda. And I see them all the time do this live hymns and just singing hymns and all of that stuff. And I remember when we used to do concerts and go to churches, we didn't need to practice any song. We used to go, and we had a segment in all of our concerts where we just let the congregation tell us which song to sing, and we have never sung it before, never rehearsed it before, and we just harmonize and just sing it. So that's the journey as it relates to the Melodious Brothers. So when we made the switch, I understand why Redley was reluctant to make the switch, but once we went to the larger gospel proclaimers, it was another level. And essentially, just for the correct history, there was the Melodious Brothers at Kingsway. There was the Proclaimers, unofficially at Golden Spring. And when we create the merger, it was called Gospel Proclaimers. That's when we had gospel.
Oh, wow. That's a good way to jump into my next question. The Gospel Proclaimers, or the Proclaimers merging with the Melodious Brothers and becoming the Gospel Proclaimers. Tell me, in terms of, I know you guys were students in school. Who funded your travels to all of these churches? How did you get to these places? Because you lived all in Golden Spring, and Redley lived in Bull Bay, and I'm sure you had different people in different places. Who funded you guys? Did you save your lunch money to travel to church, or what was it? How did you get to these churches, and how did you make these appointments in the churches? Did you just show up, or how did that go?
Well, that's a good question. There was no funding, period. There was no funding, but so it was, I'm glad they asked the question, because it was truly a ministry. A lot of times nowadays, singers talk about remuneration and payment and what have you. we were just enjoying singing, enjoying going around to different churches. And typically they would invite us because, the word spread, here's a group, they sound good. And so sometimes it would be like connection. I remember the first appointment, and this is interesting, the first appointment for the newly formed Gospel Proclaimers was a harvest program at the Bullby Church, East Rural St. Andrew, just at the border of Harborview and what's the name of this place? Yadas. Those of you who know those names.
Well, so, it's in between both of them.
In between, yes. So we I asked the group to come, and we came, and this was the very first time that the who became well known and prominent and renowned lead singer for the Gospel Proclaimers, Leroy Gibbon Gussie. This was like his very first time singing with the newly formed Gospel Proclaimers. He was invited. I think it was Errol Martin who convinced him or inveigled him to come. And they were friends, for a long time. And so Errol Martin was excited to hear a group of guys that sounding good, what have you, come join us. So that very performance at that concert, at that Harvest concert, we would go around the back of the church, and then he would ask, what song you guys know? Do you know this? Do you know that? He would start singing. And I remember he played the guitar as well. I remember we did a couple of songs with him. Now Found Grace was one of them. I think we went and we sang Now Found Grace, and it was standing ovation. And then, at that time they will ask for encore. So this was the only song we knew. So we were in the back of the church, and then he said, what song we're going to sing? And he said, Shadrach? So let's do it. Let's do Shadrach. And then he started Shadrach with the guitar, and then we back him up, and, we were ready with the second song. It was a lot of excitement, wow. But, very spontaneous. And that's how it went down as a start.
And that's for those people who are watching, that's the Leroy Gibbon that we know, the big singer now, who has traveled all over the world. That's the Leroy Gibbon you're talking about.
Yep. That is the Leroy Gibbon, one of his famous songs, This Magic Moment.
Yes.
I think everybody probably know that. But God has really provided for us. Just going back to, how we really finance ourselves. Back in those days, as you probably know, I don't know if it has changed any or much, but we hardly ever get any support or any contribution from anybody. And we were students for the most part. We eat at each other's house. Sometimes when we can't make it home, we sleep at each other's house and wake up in the morning and get going. Sometimes we got school in the morning and we got to get up early and got to work our way to school, sometimes in whatever clothes we have on. I think I got excused the most showing up at Kingsway without my uniform. I think I hold the record for being excused the most, because in addition back then to singing, I was also preaching as a student preacher in a lot of churches, and sometimes it's the clothes I preach in that I end up having to show up to school in the next day. but God has always made a way. We did a lot of hitchhiking too. In addition to that, back in those days, I remember we were on our way to sing in Glengolf one Sabbath afternoon. I'm not sure if Dr. Redley, you remember that. And we hitchhiked we were now walking from Lawrence Tavern to Glengoff, didn't even realize how far it was.
Yeah, we did a lot of walking.
Yeah, and this pickup truck stopped to pick us up. We all jumped on the truck, and Turner didn't jump on fast enough, and he fell and scratched up himself, ripped up his uniform shirt. So we've had a lot of these experiences, but God's been good, and God has just opened a lot of doors for us.
Yeah,
I'm sure we're gonna have the opportunity in some future recordings that we're gonna share to talk more about some of those experiences. And certainly I would love to hear some of those on the road situations that you guys have had, because you have
Believe me, there are literally hundreds of them. Some of them you don't want to hear.
Certainly, I'm sure we want to hear the ones you don't want us to hear. Those are the ones we want to hear.
Many experiences.
But while we're on that,
left us.
Tell us.
You don't want to hear when boss left us and we just had to sleep wherever.
Trust me, I'm sure we want to hear. We want to hear all of it. We want to hear everything. But
well, my favorite experience, if I could say this, I wish Turner was on, but we could repeat it. But we went to minister all the way in Trelawney to this place called Clarkstown, Trelawney. And there were families that, in Jack's, where Jack is from, Harold Martin is from. And there are two families that were putting us up. One was Jack's family, country style, small, poor, if you will. And then there was this elder in the church, this big, beautiful mansion. And so there are some guys who were quick to go to the mansion, Turner being one of them. Turner's always looking for that lifestyle. And every day, I mean, that family with maid service and everything, lay out dinner. It's just a little piece of steak and a few grains of rice and a nice serving of vegetables and all of that stuff. And almost every day, Turner, when he's done eating, he's headed over to us to have dinner. Because that dinner just didn't suffice or fit.
Wow. Those memories are priceless, actually priceless. You can never, ever forget those experiences. But in terms of performance, in terms of singing, ministry, is there in those early days a standout? I know you just mentioned the Harvest Festival at Bull Bay Church, Redley. That was the first Gospel Proclaimers performance. But can you recall, even as Melodious Brothers, a standout performance, something that you remember? It was a standout, and tell us why it was so impacting and impactful for you as Melodious Brothers.
I think the one that stands out, the song that stands out is Them Bones. And I think Them Bones became a signature song after a while. As Dennis mentioned earlier, and we would do hymns, Oh, the Land I'm Bound For, and other hymns we would do. But Them Bones was different because, as you know, you start pretty low, and then you would now have to remember to connect the bones as you go up, and then to disconnect the bones as you come down. So that was a little tricky, You don't want to miss a bone. If on your way up you miss a bone, or on your way down you miss a bone, you're in trouble. And so that one was interesting. Was an interesting song that stands out. It's also the song that we used to enter the Youth Christ Festival at the time. Mm-hmm. And then there was this other group, an Adventist Quartet, and they did Rich Harmony. Most Adventist Quartet have Rich Harmony, much more experienced than us to some extent at the time. They did Milky White Way, man, and that was beautiful. Milky White Way, you know. But when
you remember the name of that group?
That was Prince Harold's, I think.
And Prince Harold's.
Prince Harold's, yes. And it's interesting because Paul Mundell was in that group, and we sang back at primary school. St. Paul I mentioned, but when we hit that stage with them bones and took that bones up and, you know, broke it apart, coming back down, man, you know, it took the evening. It was standing ovation. We won that leg of the competition. So that stands out. But the third leg was interesting too. I'll share that another time.
All right.
Yeah. If I were to probably identify two things I will identify. Number one is when the mayor of Kingston passed away, George Mason. I remember him because he's a cousin of my father. When he passed away, we were invited to minister at the funeral service. I think it's at St. Jude's Church in Stony Hill. Back in those days, the Minister of Local Government, who I think issued the invitation to us, also lived in the Stony Hill area. And the impact there was so tremendous that I think it was after that we really begin to get a lot of national and regional invitations to do things. I think right after that, we even had an invitation to sing and have the Jamaica Defense Force to back us up. So I think, you know, so we've had those experiences. And I think the other for me in ministry is just the evangelistic focus of the Gospel Proclaimers. We were really committed to evangelism, to crusades. Not only have we participated in many crusades, but we've had our own crusades. And one of the ones that really stood out is the crusade we did all the way up in Lawrence Tavern again. And I do know that has had tremendous impact. So many folks who came to the Lord after that. And we started out, and I think it was at that point largely myself and Jack who were the preachers, and our new manager coming on stream at the time. I'm not sure really why his name is slipping me now. Fitz Henry. And so Fitz Henry was just young, coming into the faith, and we literally mentored him deeper into the faith. He took over the crusade, and I think well over 100 or so people accepted the Lord as a result. So I those kinds of experiences for me really shows the commitment that the Gospel Proclaimers had, and so many of the brothers and sisters continue to have as it relates to our passion and commitment to ministry.
You just actually cleared up something for me, because you're talking about the crusade that was at the Lawrence Tavern School?
Church.
It was at the church, yes, the church.
Okay. Because I remember at some point in time, Fitzhenry did a crusade at the school, and you guys were also featured there. So in my young
before.
We got it, everything that started with Henry and evangelism started with the Gospel Proclaimer.
Okay. So the crusade you're talking about was before this at the school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
School. Yes.
That's amazing.
And then,
that's amazing.
There, as Dennis has indicated, we had quite a number of converts who were baptized. One of them who remained in the church and became prominent is Pastor Edwards. Mansfield Edwards.
Mansfield Edwards got baptized under one of our crusades.
Wow. That's amazing. And Pastor Mansfield Edwards became my senior pastor. At one point, I was his associate pastor. And wow, taught me quite a bit about the art of preaching. So, oh my goodness, the circle, it comes all the way around. It comes all the way around. I'm tremendously happy to talk to you guys, and I'm sure that our viewers, they will want to see part 2 of this journey of the Gospel Proclaimers. I hope the next time we'll be able to bring to you, those of you who are watching, other members of the Gospel Proclaimers. So we can again just touch on some of the early days and talk more about the journey of the Gospel Proclaimers. Once again, I want to thank Reverend Dennis.
If I may just quickly add before you wrap it up, as you mentioned that Dr. Morris, it is so important as we are organizing for a grand reunion next year. The commitment is that for 2025 in April, there will be a grand reunion resurrection weekend in Jamaica.
Sure.
That very Sunday, there will be a youth concert experience at the National Arena. So wherever the Gospel Proclaimers, friends and family and supporters and fans over the years are, we certainly want to encourage them to really connect with us now so they can be a part of this awesome reunion. Just imagine a reunion after 50 years. That doesn't happen very often, not with any group, anywhere, at any level.
And you guys are still in your 40s.
Yeah, that's right.
God is good. He's kept us.
That's right.
Redley, what do you want to say about that upcoming a reunion? And is there any other event that is coming up? We are talking now, this is November 2024. For those of you who are watching, this is November 24 that we are recording this. Anything that is upcoming in the near future, and also, as Reverend Dennis just spoke about, next year, 2025, Arise in Jamaica, April. Anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. This month, actually the end of this month, the first weekend in December 7th to be exact, the Gospel Proclaimers will be together in Atlanta, and we will be doing a benefit concert there in aid of Kingsway High School Alumni Association, all a part of the package and planning leading up to next year's reunion. So I'll encourage our listeners, our viewers, to stay tuned to information that will be sent out for that reunion concert. It's really going to be Gospel Proclaimers and Friends. So there are several other artists that's going to be involved in it. Dr. Morris, I think you're going to be involved in it as well. Let's
be clear. Let's be clear. You said artists, so my involvement is not as an artist. I will not be singing. I will be I'll be part hosting. So don't let anybody watching this not join because they want to hear real singers, not me. So. But certainly I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to December 7th. We're having the information. It's going to be at the end of this video, so stay tuned and you will see all the information as it will be on the screen, and you'll be able to see that. Also, you can go on the Gospel Proclaimers, is it their Facebook page, and see the information, and also I'm sure you'll get more information on this upcoming concert, and also you will hear more about the reunion next year, 2025, in Jamaica. But once again, guys, really appreciative of your time. Thank you so much for sharing, jogging your memory, and just helping us to get a glimpse of the roots of the gospel proclaimers, the Melodious Brothers, and the inspiration of God upon your lives, how you allowed him to lead you to start this ministry that has helped many individuals to Christ, and I can dare say help to keep many young men, young women in the church. I am one of those who was significantly influenced by you all, and I'm forever grateful for your ministry. Thanks again for joining us.
You put a lot out of us, sir. God bless you. Be well.
Thank you, Dr. Morris.
Take care. All right, stay well.
Thank you.